What is up? Welcome back to another video. I did one of these last year. I'm not sure if it's going to be like an annual thing, but I do think it's good to do just a little checkup on things, a little buyer consumer advice, what have you. But this is really just going to be my opinion on cameras you should buy in 2024. A few things first before we just get into this. A bit of a disclaimer, okay? This video and most of the things I say are really founded upon my opinion, which is kind of curated over a number of years, repairing cameras, buying cameras, selling cameras, so on and so forth, taking pictures, whatever. That being said, it's still just my opinion. Granted, I do think that there's a lot of concrete reasoning to the things I say and think, but at the end of the day, you are more than welcome to disagree with me. I don't think that I have like the hierarchy of opinion on things. I just know from like my perspective what I think makes sense, and that's kind of what these videos are more about. It's just me looking at what's out there right now and hopefully helping you kind of decipher the wide, expansive world of film photography. Primarily, I'm going to be focusing on 35mm SLRs, as I think that's still one of like the most friendly entry points, and it's one that kind of gives the most immediate positive feedback, which one can then use to continue on the deep, dark rabbit hole of film photography at large. Medium format is a great thing. That's kind of what I started out on. I really recommend most people to start with it, but just for the sake of like average consumer, I think 35mm is a much easier sell because you're getting more shots. Cameras are typically smaller and easier to carry with you, easier to operate, and has a bit more of that aesthetic, that people are looking for. And as goofy as that sounds, that's just the reality of it from my opinion. Again, feel free to disagree, but let's just get into it. This is just a quick list. I'll go over some of my reasons for them and then just kind of move on. We're going to go by brand. We'll start alphabetically, kind of. I think I'm bad at the alphabet. Not really, but I don't know what it is. I always get G and J. Like in my mind, I have to really stop myself before spelling. We'll start with Canon. The Canon series of cameras, obviously they have the AE1, the A1, the AE1 program. Those are all great cameras. I still think that the Canon A1 is so affordable for what it is. For anyone out there who's like kind of on the fence about looking into getting a Canon F1, don't. Like literally don't. Unless you have like a really, really solid reason to get a Canon F1 or like the Canon F1 New especially, get a Canon A1. They are so much better in my opinion. Okay. Yes, they don't have the detachable prism, but there are like 7 different ways that you can shoot that camera. It is incredibly easy to work on and repair for most any technician. And overall, it is a much more compact system. It's one of the most technologically impressive 35mm SLR cameras in my opinion. I'm flabbergasted at how affordable they still are compared to the AE1 and the AE1 program. The A1 is a much better get, but those are some Canon cameras. There are ones that came before that, which would be like more of the F-type bodies, the old F1, the FTB, the FT, the TL, TLB, FX, and the TX. And that's what I would recommend to you to get. They are large, they're metal, and they're very reliable. Usually have 1 or 2 around, but the F series of Canons is kind of slept on a little bit. The TX especially, I made a video about it a little bit ago. It's super simple. It is the most basic camera out there. It is just a basic camera, and it just works. Like it literally just works. It's a K1000 with an FD mount. I really do like them a lot. I can't sing enough praises. And again, in terms of affordability, you're not going to find a better deal. So I definitely would recommend those to anyone getting into it. If you want something a little bit more compact, you don't want to shell out the AE1 money, but you want a Canon that's a little bit smaller, I would recommend the Canon at 28 still. I think it really embodies the idea of fun film photography. Super easy to use, super easy to get into. I've had very few issues with the Canonet 28 series at large. I think you throw a flash on it and you've got one of the most versatile little systems out there. It is a metal point and shoot. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Canonet QL17G3 obviously has a lot more in terms of features and functionality, but I just find myself using the auto speed, and not everyone's going to do that. People really like the Canonet QL17G3. I totally get that. But for me, I think shooting the Canonet 28 first, I was just like, this is it for me. I really, really like how it works. And the QL17G3, in my mind, is just kind of like the Canonet 28, but with a few more obstacles. But that being said, still a great camera, but the Canonet 28 is like $50, $100, $125 max. And the Canonet QL17G3s are like, I think $300 now, last time I checked. They're up there. They're getting up there in price. Great cameras, well worth it if you're into that, but I just think the Canonet 28 is still pretty slept on. And then finally, in the Canon series, I'm going to discuss something that might be a little controversial. Get a Canon Rebel G, or get one of the Canon autofocus cameras. Like the 35mm autofocus Canon cameras are insane. I cannot believe how those are still affordable as well. They're relatively new, like, early 2000s or whatever, like 20 years old max. Most, if not all of them, like it's one of those things, like it's the eye test. Visually, if it's in good condition on the pictures, it's usually working just fine. There are a few models that have known issues, but for the most part, they usually work all right. The flash is obviously one of the first things to go on a lot of them, and then a lot of them also utilize plastic gearing. But due to the fact that they don't have that same vintage aesthetic vibe, they're not really popular, and it also opens your world to a wide array of EF mount lenses, which, as a Canon person myself primarily, they're some of the best lenses out there. You get a 50-1.8 for like, I think they're like $100 now, like the Nifty 50, really affordable little fast lens, and you slap that on a Rebel G, and it's one of the best cameras in my opinion. I've gotten them for $15. I've gotten them for $20. I've had a hard time selling them. The reason I don't buy them is because I enjoy using them and then I can't sell them again. It's insane to me. But they're really, really solid cameras. The integrated flash is great. You have all of the different shooting modes that you can imagine. It's a digital camera that just so happens to shoot film. That whole series of them is really nice, except for the XT, I think it is, has a really, really bad backdoor latch. So look out for that one. But the Rebel G is really a solid camera from what I can tell. And if you can find one for a good deal, get a couple EF lenses and you are set. I really do enjoy them, and the autofocus is really nice. Next up, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Jeez, I just like blew through half the alphabet. Minolta. I don't really talk about Minolta that much. There's no reason for that. I just don't. But I'll say it again, the SR series of cameras, the SRTs, they're great. I really do like them. I think the Minolta, the Rocar lenses are insane, really, really sharp, really affordable. Really can't go wrong with them. I shot the Minolta SRT 202 over the summer and absolutely adore it. The shutter sound to this day is one of my favorites. It is so crisp. It is so metallic. It is so full-bodied. It's fantastic. All mechanical. The light meter, it's there. The light meter is there. Not the best thing in the world, but for all intents and purposes, the cameras usually just work. And again, that's kind of what a lot of this dwindles down to. Is it going to work? Now, a lot of people are going to say, why would you recommend cameras to people that, let them get cameras that work? And I totally agree. Like, get something that's going to work for you. But this is more for if you want like an affordable option. This is kind of what this video is more tailored to, and I probably should have put that in the disclaimer, but these are affordable options for people because film photography, it really spiked for a while, and it still kind of is on the up and up. Like, the prices of things can just be absurd, next level, insane. And so it's really hard to find, for a lot of people, affordable options that they can just kind of use. And then if they have the money to get it serviced down the road, then they can, and it'll be easy to service. It won't bankrupt them and whatever. And that's kind of what this video is more tailored to. And for that, I really like the Minolta SRT series because, again, they usually just kind of work. And if they don't, working on them is usually not too difficult. And most technicians know how to get in there and fix them up. So I recommend them. I think the next one of the Minolta series I would recommend, and I kind of hesitate to do this, but the X700. Now, I've talked a lot of shit about this camera, the X700, because I don't really like them that much, and there's nothing wrong with them necessarily. This, again, is where my bias comes into play. I don't really like the plasticky feel. I don't really like completely electronic cameras. I don't like Minolta electronics in general. But that being said, they are easy to work on for some people. Not for me, but for some people. And for that reason, they're relatively affordable. Once you get them serviced, they are really great cameras. I just think from my perspective of like going online and trying to like track down a good deal, if they do work, they're going to not work very soon. So I'm just like, what's the point of investing money into this that's just going to fail me later on down the road? And I also think, in my opinion, I really like the SRT. So seeing them jump from that model to like the X series, the XGMs, the XG7, what have you, the XDs and whatnot, I'm just like, man, like you had something going there. And not everyone agrees with me. A lot of people really like the X700s and whatnot. But if you're going to get any of that series, I would look at the X700, the X570, or the X370. They're all kind of the same realm, but they're definitely the most advanced, I would say, technologically of all those, the easiest to work on of all of those series, and ultimately just pretty solid cameras. Next up, we have Nikon. I think the Nikkormat FT3 is a really, really good camera. Very, very affordable. It kind of falls in that same platform of like the FTB in that it's the more robust and bigger mechanical full body model before the FE, the FM that really took off and is kind of what Nikon's known for now. The Nikkormat FT3 is one of the advanced versions of that Nikkormat series. And it's really, really nice. They're really good cameras, super duper easy to work on again, and really, really affordable. Like, you can't give them away most of the time, and you can still have the full access of the Nikon series lenses, which is fantastic. Super wide array of lenses and really healthy ecosystem there to get into. The FM is probably going to be my next preferred choice. They're a little bit more spendy, but they are mechanical and, again, easy to work on, really reliable when they work and when people's fingers don't go right through the shutters. They're great. The FEs are fine. Just kidding. No, the FEs are great cameras as well. I just, again, electronics, yeah. And then other Nikon cameras, you have like stuff like the N80 and the N65 and the N75. These are kind of similar to the Rebel Gs. They're great cameras as well. And you, again, have access to all of the Nikon lenses. And the autofocuses are fine on those, although sometimes the Nikon autofocus motors just stop working, which isn't great. But for all intents and purposes, the Nikon autofocus cameras are pretty solid. And yes, some of them, the grips will kind of erode and become really, 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 really sticky and gross. And yes, a lot of them, the backdoor latches. I'm looking at you, N80, with the terrible fucking backdoor latch that's always broken. But despite those things, they're still pretty good cameras. I would prefer a Canon Rebel G. Part of that's because I have the EF lenses, but the other part of that, again, is better backdoor latch and less eroding skin, really. So those are my Nikon recommendations. Not a lot, but the Nikkormat FT3 I think is a great camera. Moving on to Olympus. I don't really talk about Olympus much. So Pentax, my options, I'm joking. Olympus is a little tough because they don't have as many cameras. I can recommend outright. They have the OM1, the OM2, the OM3, the OM4, the OM10, the OMPC, the OMG, the OM44, I think it was. And that's about it. And obviously they have like the 35RC and the 35SEE or the S35EE and the Trip series of cameras and the Pens cameras. Stay away from all of that. Honestly, OM1s are fantastic cameras. I don't talk about them enough, but they really are great cameras. I think the OM2 is another one of those cameras that's like really underrated for what it provides. In a world of people like adoring the AE1 program, the OM2 is right there. It's smaller, has nice lenses, but the OM1 to me is really great. It's just mechanical. It's the same size as the OM2, pretty much the same camera except for all mechanical, and you don't have any kind of auto, there's no kind of like aperture priority or shutter speed priority or anything like that. It's just the camera. So if I had to recommend one of them, I would say the OM1, and then next up I would say the OM2. Stay away from the OM2S program. Nobody wants to work on those. Stay away from the OM4. Nobody wants to work on those. The OM3 I've heard is really nice, but they're just really expensive. I do want to shoot one of those one day just to do like a full, retrospective on Olympus cameras. Moving on now to Pentax. There's a lot. I'm much more in the know with the Pentax series of cameras. I feel like I can offer a bit more insight here and a bit more help. But what I can recommend is the PC35AF. I'm going to do a video on this camera because I just got one and I'm in love. Like, I'm not even fooling. If you're talking about getting a point and shoot and you're not going to get the PC35AF, what are you even doing? Like, this is the point and shoot to get, in my opinion. Like, the fact that there's not a million videos on how amazing this camera is, and people are talking about the Contax T2 and but the Kylie Jenner has one, and whatever else people talk about, the fucking Yashica T4 and the Konica Big Mini, whatever. The Pentax PC35AF is right up there with them, I have to say. I'm going to do a whole video on it, like I said, so I'm not going to spill the beans now, but I really, really love it. And they're not that bad. I think like a couple $100 maybe at the most. And they're really, really nice. So we'll get into that later, but for now, I recommend that. I also would recommend the Pentax P3. You ever heard of it? Because I sure didn't. Just kidding, I did. I know about these things, but it's a good camera. It feels good. It is kind of similar to the P30T, although I think that the P3 has a much more robust feeling. One of my main complaints about the P30 is it feels hollow. It feels empty and vacuous when you're advancing that, like, just afterthought of an advance lever. It just feels like, am I in a cavern? Am I spelunking? I know it's like dark around me, but like that's where I feel like I am. I just feel like I'm in this void of space. But the P3, it just feels more solid. And I like the physical movements of the shutter speed control dial. I enjoy that. The camera overall is really, really impressively ergonomic, lightweight, easy to use. I really like the Pentax P3. And again, very, very slept on. So there's a bunch out there for not a lot of money, and they're relatively easy to get into because the internals are pretty much the same as an ME, pretty much the same as an ME Super, and all of that jazz. And speaking of ME, that would be my next recommendation, the Pentax ME. I'm going to probably do a video on this, I think, in the near future, but my opinion's really swayed lately. The ME Super is a great camera, and I still stand by that, but I think the ME is everything I really actually need out of the camera. Because I look at the ME Supers, I'm just like, I really like those. But I end up just shooting it on auto most of the time anyway. So why would I not just get an ME, which is basically the same thing, lot more affordable, and it's a little bit more boiled down. Like, it's just the basics, and I kind of like that. So I might talk about that more in the future because I'm still kind of on the fence there, but really that's where I'm at. The Pentax MEs are great cameras, and the K-series lenses are superb. finally, to round up my Pentax spiel, Spotmatics, I'm going to recommend them until fucking blue in the face. The M42 series of lenses is just the best. I mean, I really do like them a whole lot. It's everything that a camera should be, super boiled down. Anyone who's ever told you, like, hey, buy a Pentax K1000, don't. Like, I mean, they're great cameras. I love them. If you can afford to buy a K1000, buy a K1000. If you can't, buy a Spotmatic, buy an SP2, buy an SPF. The SPF is literally a K1000, except it has self-timer, and it has a stop-down lever, and it has an M42 mount. But other than that, it is virtually identical to a K1000. There's a whole repair manual on how to take all of the Spotmatic F internal components and use them into a K1000 for parts. Like, that's a thing. I'm not lying to you. That is a thing that exists. So for that, I recommend the Spotmatic F, the SP2, the SP, the SP500. Great cameras, can't recommend them enough. And then there's the other cameras, the ZXMs and stuff like that, and I would go ahead and recommend them kind of along the same lines, the Canon Rebel G and the Nikon N60, N75, and N90 and whatnot. But I'm not going to be able to do that on this because those cameras have this motor drive system that has a plastic gearing on the outside of it that breaks consistently. I have another video on this, again, I promise. But that's a problem. They break down over time. They're not reliable. They're really, really, really affordable. And some of them you can even use the older K-series lenses on them, which make them fantastic cameras. But not all of them. And the ones that you can't, they will break down. And there are technicians out there that can work on them. I'm going to start working on them as well because I think it'd be great to get those back into circulation. They all have this really awful grandma gold color to them that I really don't like, but I'm looking into that too, I promise. The point being, though, is I can't recommend those outright at the moment, but I'm hoping in the film cameras to buy for 2025, I'll have more options like that to recommend because I think they're really good cameras. I'm really proud of Pentax I'm really stoked to see Pentax jumping back into the film market to see what they have. But I think if you're going to be looking into getting that new Pentax half frame, whatever, honestly consider getting a Pentax PC35 AF because I feel like it's just checking all the boxes for what you really want out of a film camera right now. And it's here right now. I mean, it came out in I think the 80s or something, but still, it's here and it's great. So that about rounds out the video that I have for you today. I think I covered most of the basics. Though, those are all kind of safe bets, but honestly, at the end of the day, you want a little bit of a safe bet. You want something that's going to be affordable and reliable. And I think that all of the things I listed today, I can say with reasonable confidence they are going to be both of those things. And if I missed anything, feel free to comment down below. Let me know, or let the people watching this know as well. I really do enjoy hearing from all of you guys, hearing your perspectives, hearing your takes, because at the end of the day, I'm just me. I just have my own experiences to go off of. But I always like when people are like, hey, actually, what about this one? What about that? I like hearing that stuff because it makes me feel like, oh, you're right. Maybe I should give this a second shot, or maybe I should kind of temper my opinion there a little bit. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Stay tuned. Got a lot of other good stuff coming. Appreciate it as always. I'll catch you on the next one.